We begin today in the Gemara on the bottom of Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braise, Kishem she'amru, asur legaleach b'moed, just like it was said that you're not allowed to take a haircut on Chol HaMoed, kach asur litl tzipanayim b'moed. So too you're not allowed to cut your nails on Chol HaMoed. David Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yosi matter. Rabbi Yosi says, no, you're allowed to cut your nails on Chol HaMoed. Then the Braisa says, just like it says that an oval may not take a haircut in the time of his avelus, so he's not allowed to cut his nails when he's in his avelus. This is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. And again, Rabbi Yosi matter. Rabbi Yosi also says that an oval is allowed to cut his nails. So all is said regarding this machlokes halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda, that we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda ba'oval, regarding an oval, that he should not cut his nails, but v'halacha ke Rabbi Yosi b'moed. But we paskin like Rabbi Yosi on Chol HaMoed, that you are allowed to cut your nails on Chol HaMoed. Okay, we go over to the daf. Right? No, I don't think so. No. Shmuel Amar, and this is what we paskin like. Shmuel Amar halacha ke Rabbi Yosi. Shmuel says we paskin like Rabbi Yosi b'moed, regarding Chol HaMoed it says that it's mutter to cut your nails, u'ba'avel, and also regarding avelos that you're allowed to cut your nails. And here the Gemara brings a statement that is going to bring up a few times later on here. Amar Shmuel, Shmuel says the following halacha. Halacha k'divrei ha'mekel ba'avel. Anytime there's an argument regarding the halacha of avelos, we always paskin like the one that's lenient. As I said, we'll see this a few times, and this is something that the Rebbe also mentioned and told people when they get to certain shilas of avelos that you always have to go l'kula when it comes to avelos. And I believe that everyone said that when you're mekel in avelos, it's a kula for the neshama. It makes it lighter and easier for the neshama. The neshama does not want to see too harsh of an avelos, and for his sake. Very interesting. So the Gemara says, there was a story, Pinchas, Achur de Mar Shmuel. So Pinchas, the brother of Mar Shmuel, Isra lei milsa. Something happened to him, meaning that a relative passed away and he was an avelos. So Al Shmuel, Lemishal Taime Mine, Shmuel went to speak with him, to be Menachem Avalim. Chazinu, Mar Shmuel saw, Letufri Da'aven Efishin. He saw that he had long nails. Malay, so he said to him, Amayla Shaklas Lahu, why didn't you cut your nails? Malay, so the Pinchas said to Mar Shmuel, Ibididei Hava. If with you there would have been an avelus, mi mezalzel is bei kula hai, would you be mezalzel in your avelus? Would you cut your nails? That's what he answered him. So the Gemara says, this answer he gave him, Havoi kishkoge sheyotza malifnei hashalit. This was a mistake from a person of authority that spoke this way. This is a lashon of a pasuk, but the point is that he shouldn't have said such a thing if you would have been an avelus. Because what happened? V'isra bei milsa b'shmuel. And now Shmuel became an oval after this. Al Pinchas, Achua, so now Pinchas, his brother, came, L'mishal Taime Minei, to go and speak with him and to be Menachem Avalim. So Shaklinu L'tufre, so Shmuel did cut his nails, but he took his nails, Chavtinu La'ape, and he threw it into his face. Yep, so he was angry at what he caused. Rashi here says that after he threw it, he picked it up, because we'll see soon in the Gemara, a person that cuts his nails and throws it on the floor is a rasha. So he picked it up afterwards. And Amalei, Shmuel said to him, Leslach, do you not hold this that it says, Bris Krusa Lisfasayim, that there is a covenant for the lips of a person, which means, Damar Rabbi Yechanan, Minayim, from where do we know Shabris Krusa Lisfasayim, that there's a covenant for your lips, that the things that you say could actually take effect. Shenema, the pasuk says, Vayem Avram el Na'arav. Avram says to the two lads that came with him, Yishmael and Eliezer, Shvulachem Payam Machamar, stay here with the donkey, Vani Vana Nilchat Koi, Vinishtachave, Vinoshuva Aleichem. And he said, we're going to return. So that's what he said. But even though he wasn't really planning on returning with Yitzchak, but because he said so, what happened? V'istaya Milsa, and this itself caused also that the Hadar, Tarvaya, that they both came back. Yeah, so this is the end of the story over here. Huh? Can sein, that what?
You had to be careful what you say.
Yeah. Talk to Gemara, so now we thought regarding the Psak Halacha we said before, that you're allowed to cut your nails, that the Yadin, you're allowed to cut the nails of your hands, but the Regal, for the feet nails, the toenails, you're not allowed to cut. Amar Ravanan, so Ravanan Bat Achlifa said, Ledidi, Mefarshali Minei, the Shmuel, I heard from Shmuel, Loishna the Yad, Loishna the Regel, doesn't make a difference, the nails of the hands or the toenails, either way you're allowed to cut them during Avelus. But to cut them with a normal utensil, with a scissors or a nail cutter, the way you usually cut it, it's not allowed. I was standing in front of Rabbi Yochanan on Chol Hamoed, and he was biting his nails with his teeth, and he threw the nails on the ground. So the Gemara says about this that he saw that Shema Mina Tlas. From this we learn 3 different points. Shema Mina, we learn from here, number 1, you're allowed to cut your nails on Chol Hamoed. Or Shema Mina, we also see biting your nails with your mouth, with your teeth, is not considered to be a disgusting thing if Rabbi Yochanan can do this in the Bais Medrash. And Shema Mina, the 3rd thing we see is Mutter Lezarka. You're allowed to throw your nails on the floor. Frag the Gemara, is that true? But what Tanya we learned, Shloisha Dvarim Nemer B'Tzipanayim. There are 3 things that was said about how you cut your nails. Ha Koivran, someone that cuts them and buries it, Tzaddik. So he's a tzaddik. Sorfa, if you burn your nails, then chosid. So you're a chosid. And zerkan, rasha. Someone that throws it on the ground is a rasha. So here, this is the famous thing. It's brought in also Nayim Yayim, that a person that burns his own nails, so even though burning a chelik of your body could have a certain harm for the person himself, but nevertheless, a chosid is more concerned about someone else than himself. Yeah, so what do you see over here? That you're not allowed to throw your nails on the ground. So how did Rabbi Yochanan do this? Sagt the Gemara, Rasha, my time in my. Why is he called a Rasha? Shema taver alein isha ubra, because it's a sakana that if a woman that's pregnant will step over it, vitapel, and she's going to miscarry. Sagt the Gemara, so if so, isha b'medrasha leishchicha. A woman in the Bais Medrash is not common to be there. So there it doesn't matter if you throw it on the ground. If you'll argue and say, still you should be careful because zimnin the michneshiluhu could be that you'll sweep or you'll gather the things that are on the floor of the Bais Medrash and then it'll go out of the Bais Medrash. V'shadulu abra, you throw it outside. So that doesn't matter because kivin de ishtani. You have a nail that fell to the floor, but once it changed its original place where it was on the floor, so then if you step over it, it's not a sakana anymore. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Zugba Machamson. There was a group of 2 people that came from the city of Chamson, Lefnei Rebbe. And in front, they came in front of Rebbe. This is one version. Mazutra Masni, Mazutra learned that Ba Machamson Lefnei Rebbe, the group came in front of Rebbe, so it wasn't Rav Yehuda, it was Mazutra, and not in the name of Rav, it was just Mazutra that said so. Ubikshu Mimenu, they asked him the question regarding an oval, Tziparnayim. Are we allowed to cut our nails? V'hitalem, and he told them it's allowed. V'im bikshu mimenu safa, and if they would ask of him whether they can also cut their mustache, hitter lehem, or Rashi here is actually goyis, hoya mata lehem. He saw that if he would have asked them whether they can cut their mustache, he would have told them that that's allowed as well. Shmuel says, av bikshu mimenu safa, they actually did ask if they can cut their mustache, v'hitter lehem, and he was mata this. Amar Avitul Safra Mishmei de Rav or Mishmei de Rav Papa Safa Mizavis Lezavis. You can cut your mustache from one corner to the other. Amar Abami Ubisafa Makevis. You can only cut your mustache in Avelos if it's something that's bothering you when you're eating. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Lididi, for me Kisafa Makevis Damili. My entire mustache is all like something which is bothering me from eating, because he was Rashi says he was a mafunik, whatever, he was someone that was particular about this, and therefore you can cut his entire mustache. Another statement that he said, it's not unrelated to what we just learned, but it's the same Ameire. Pare, that was in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. Hu Ama, he was tall, 1 Ama, which is very short, 2 feet tall. Uzekena Yama, and his beard was a Ama tall. Uparmashteka Yama. Vizeres, and his parmashtakai, which is the aver, that was a amma long with and a zeres. Okay, mamash, a little klein and midget, disgusting person. L'kayim hashanemar, this fulfills what it says in the pasuk. Ushfala noshim, the lowest of people, yakim aleh. The Eibush will bring upon Yidden that he should rule over the Yidden. Omer avitlu safra mishmei de Rav Papa. Pare shahaya b'mei Moshe. Pare that was in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. Amgushi haya. He was a kishuf, a machashif. Shanema hine yaitza mayma. The pasuk there says he goes out to the water, and he had an hog of kishuf. Okay, sagt the Gemara weiter. Rashi actually brings a machlekes. Rashi brings 2 opinions. Either it means the union of kishuf, or it means that he was megadif, that he cursed and he didn't believe in the Eibush, so on. He made himself like an Avodah Zarah. So going back to what it said before in the Mishnah regarding the halacha of Cholamayid, that ve'elu mechapsin, these people are allowed to wash their garments b'mayid and Cholamayid. Abam dinas hayam, if you came right before Yom Tov from overseas and you didn't have a chance to wash your garments before Yom Tov. If you only have one garment to wear and you already wore in Yom Tov and now you want to wash it in Cholamayid, then you're allowed to wash it in Cholamayid. Masav Rabbi Yirmiyah, so Rabbi Yirmiyah says, it says in the Mishnah, Elu mechapsen b'mayid, only these are allowed to wash their garments in Cholamayid. If you came from overseas, or the Mishnah said other scenarios, you got freed from prison and so on, so it's mashma, hani in, those that are mentioned in the Mishnah are allowed. But if you don't have only one garment, that's not mentioned in the Mishnah, that you're allowed to wash it in Cholamayid. I'll explain you what the Mishnah is saying is that even though he had two and he made them dirty, he's allowed to wash on a Cholamayid if he came right before Yom Tov. So the Mishnah was talking about a normal person that has more than one garment. So over there it gave those conditions that only if you didn't wash it because you came late before Yom Tov. But a person that only has one, that the Mishnah wasn't talking about.
Where does it say it this way?
That what?
He's putting words in the Mishnah.
Well, he's explaining the Mishnah. Doesn't say it clearly in the Mishnah. He's saying the Mishnah is speaking about a person that had two garments, but a person that had one, the Mishnah wasn't talking about that. Yeah, and Chanami, it's true. And the Chanami, so we already discussed that. It has to be a real Einus, Mebdina Sayam, and so on. Shalach Rav Yitzchak bar Yaakov bar Giyuri Mishmei de Rav Yechanan Kli Pishton. You have linen garments. Mutter lechapsa mechele shomayid. Those garments which are lighter and easier to wash, it's not such a big tirche. You're allowed to wash them in Cholamayid. So Rav asks again from what it said in the Mishnah, mitbachais yadayim. If you have hand towels or mitbachais asafarim, those towels that are used by the saparim, the barbers. And Rashi says they're also made from linen. And that it said in the Mishnah that you're allowed to wash them in Cholamayid. So what do we see? Hani in, specifically these towels that are mentioned in the Mishnah are allowed. Kli pishton loy, but stam garment linens are not, linen garments that is not allowed. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, no mas nisin, the Mishnah is coming to say, afilu the sharmini. What the Mishnah is saying is that the garments that are made from other kinds of materials, whether wool or anything else, that there are the limitations that the Mishnah says that it's allowed. But if it's linen garments, so that's a different story. The Mishnah wasn't talking about that. Amar by Hidye said, "Ledidi chazili yamashal Tveria." I saw by the water in Tveria the mafkile that people were taking out from there on Cholamayid. They were washing mishichli the monikisna. They had these pails with the linen garments that they were washing b'chula demayida on Cholamayid. So he was saying, look, we see that people do this. Maskefla Abaye. So Abaye asked on this. So you could bring a rai from this that it's allowed. And man leima the beratzon chachamim avdi. Who says that what they were doing was something that the chachamim agreed with this? Maybe what they were doing was not with the agreement of the chachamim. So there's no raya from the fact that this is what people did. So this is, I believe, well, it depends who's Ma'aserav. If it's a Ma'aserav of Stam people, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, another Mishnah over here, another two Mishnahs we have here about the halachas of Cholamayid. Ve'elu kaisvim b'mayed, and these are the things that you're allowed to write in Cholamayid. And other than these things, on Cholamayid you're not supposed to write. So Kiddushin Noshim, to write for a start, for a marriage, for a Kiddushin, Gittin or a get, V'shavrin, a receipt, Daitiki, which is a document that a person that's about to pass away and is writing a tzavah, Matana, a shtar that's for a matana, Pruzbulin, for a pruzbul, before Shemitah, Igris Shum, when you're writing a letter, which is Bezdin actually, that's writing to evaluate the possessions of the Yisaimim that have to be evaluated, the Igris Mazin, or you're writing a document when a person gets married, and he writes to his wife that he takes upon himself to feed her daughters or her children, so on. Shtari chalitza, a shtar for chalitza, umiunim. Miun is when you have a girl that her brothers married her off, and it's not a full marriage, and then when she becomes bas mitzvah, she could be memayin. She could say, I don't want this marriage, and then you write her a shtar, and she's not married anymore. Shtare birurin, Shtari Birurin is also when Bezdin is coming and dividing the Yerusha, and they're being mevarer, who gets which portion. And Gzeir is Bezdin, any psakdin of Bezdin, V'igrais shal reshus. And also the letters that are being written by the authorities that they have to write for people. So these are all considered to be things that are being written that are a davara of it, that they're needed for this time of Chalamayid, and therefore you're allowed to write them. What? Oh, we'll see. The Gemara is going to talk about it. But Bichlal, to write a Chalamayid is not allowed. So Shmuel said, Mutter la'aris isha b'chayil shamayid. You're allowed to get married to a woman in Chalamayid, but we're talking about la'aris, which is just the kiddushin, not the nisuin. Okay, so the kiddushin is allowed to be done in Chalamayid. Why? Shema yikadmenu acher. Because if not, someone else might come and grab her and marry her first. Shall we say we have a right to what Shmuel said? Because what did it say in the Mishnah? You could write in Chalamayid, and one of the things it said was kiddushin nashim, which sounds like we're talking about the shtar for a kiddushin. My love, shtari kiddushin mamish. It literally means to write a shtar for kiddushin because you're allowed to get married in Chalamayid. So the Gemara loy. It's not a raya because we could say the Mishnah meant shtare psikta. There's a shtar where you write the agreement of what the chassan is going to give the kala, but not necessarily the actual shtar kiddushin. So it could be they already got married before, but they're just writing this document of agreement now in Chalamayid. What you write is kamata noisin lebincha. How much are you going to be giving for your son that is going to marry my daughter? Kach v'kach, and you write the amount. Kamata noisin lebitcha, and how much are you giving for your daughter that's marrying my son? Kach v'kach, this and this amount. And then omdu v'kitshu, and then they're mekadesh. They make a kiddushin. So kanu, so the kinyan takes effect, meaning the agreement that they spoke between themselves takes effect, and and this could take effect. What they said, what the agreement they made, takes effect even when they just speak between each other about this. So therefore, in our Mishnah, we could also say the shtar that we're talking about is the shtar of the agreement of the marriage, but not the actual shtar of the kiddushin itself. The Gemara tries to bring another raya, and here we actually see a raya. There's a raya to what Shmuel said, that you're allowed to get married, to do the nisuin, that is. Again, not the nisuin, the eirisin, the eirisin, which is also called kiddushin, and chalamayid, because it says, we learned this before, ein noisin nashim b'mayid. You can't make a chasana and chalamayid. Like psulois, like almonois, whether it's a psula, whether it's an almana, v'loi miyabmin, and also not yibum and chalamayid, v'pnei shesimchi hiloi, because this is a simcha. We learned about this before, many reasons for this. One of the reasons was, if you remember, ein ma'arvin simcha b'simcha. And then it says here, so the Gemara is medayik, ha la'aris shari. But if it's an eirisin, then it would be allowed. It says only a noisin. Oh, so the Gemara says, no, here's not a raya. Loi mi baye ka'amar. We could say that this braise is telling you the bigger chiddush. Loi mi baye la'ares. Needless to say that eirisin, which is also a simcha, is not allowed. Why not? The loikavid mitzvah. Eirisin itself, you're not doing yet a mitzvah. Elafil Elisa, even to marry her. So then, Nami, the Kavod mitzvah, here you're doing the mitzvah of Peri Viribia, Aser. This is also not allowed because it's Chalamayid. So therefore, the fact that it said Ein Noisin, you can't be medayik that Eirisin is allowed. Adarabah, Eirisin where there's no mitzvah is for sure not allowed. Tashema, come, I'll bring you a rai from what it says here. The Tana of the Beis Shmuel, they learned in the Braisa by Shmuel, Ma'arsin, Avo, Loi, Koinsin. You can make the Eirisin and Chalamayid, but not Koinsin, not the Nisuan, not to fully get married. And they Noisin Sudas Eirisin, but you don't make a Suda with the Eirisin, V'loi Miyabmin, and no Yibam either, Mipnei, Simcha Hiloi, because this is a Simcha that you don't make in Chalamayid. Shema Mina, so this Braisa is a clear raya where it says that you can make the Eirisin on Chalamayid. So to Gemara, not going back to the etzim point. What did he say? Why you're allowed to be ma'aris a woman on Chalamayid? Because maybe someone else might come, Kshemi Yikadmena will marry her before you, or do the Eirisin before you. So to Gemara, Umiya Mashmuel, Shemi Yikadmena acher. Did Shmuel say that this is an issue, that you have to be concerned that someone else will come and marry her before you? But Va'amar Rav Yudah Mashmuel, B'chol Yoim V'Yoim, every single day, Baskal Yoitzes V'Yimeres. There's a Baskal that comes out and says, Bas Pliny, Le Pliny, that Bas Pliny is going to marry Pliny. So it's already destined from the Baskal. And Sada Pliny, Le Pliny. And this field is going to go to this person. So therefore, how could you say that Shem Yikadmena? So the Gemara answers, maybe someone else will come and marry her first through davening to the Eibishter and begging mercy from the Eibishter, and that will be guide him that he should be able to marry her first. The Gemara brings a story about this. Ki ha the Rave shomelahu gavre the boy rachme. He heard this individual that was davening to the Eibishter v'omer, and he said, "Tis damenli planisa." That the Eibishter should make it that I should be able to marry this woman. That's what he davened. Amalei, so Rava says to this person, "Leiti boy rachme achi." Don't daven for this, because ichaz yalach, if she's fitting for you, so then leyazlam yinach. You don't have to daven for this. She's not going to go away from you. She'll end up marrying you. V'loi, and if she's not your basherte, if she's not the one that's supposed to marry you, so then kafarta b'Hashem. So the Eibush is not going to answer your davening, and then you're going to say, "Oh, look, the Eibush doesn't answer my davening." So there's no point in davening for this.
Doesn't mean you forced the Eibush?
I don't think so. No, so I believe that's what Rashi here says. Yeah, Rashi says you're going to say, "Look, the Eibush is not answering when I daven." Basar hachi. After this, Shamei the Ka'amar, he heard this person that was saying, he was so mamish, he wanted to marry her to such an extent, and this person said, "Oi iu lemus mikama." Either I should die before her, in other words, before I see her marrying someone else, "Oi I tamos mikamei," or she should die before me if she's going to marry someone else. Amalei. So again, Rava said to him, "Lava minulach. Didn't I tell you, loiti boya Allah the milsa, that you not daven for this matter? Hachi Amar Rav Mishum Rab Reuven ben Itzrabuli." This is what Rav said in the name of Rab Reuven ben Itzrabuli. Menatayre umenanavim umenaksuvim. We see from Torah Neviim and Ksuvim that me'Hashem isha le'ish, that it's from the Eibishter that a woman is destined for a certain man. Menatayre, the pasuk says, they said about Rivka that it's in the Eibishter's hands, and the Eibishter said that she should marry Yitzchak. Menanavim, the pasuk says, and this is by Shimshon, that it was the Eibishter's plan that he should marry a woman from the Plishtim. A house or any money a person has, you can inherit from a father. But a wise woman, that comes from the Eibishter. So Bekitzi, you see over here that a woman is something that's basharat from the Eibishter, and therefore this is not something that a person could change. But here, you see, it's not clear in the Gemara over here what the maskan is, because before the Gemara was saying that you could ask Rachamim, and then you could be makdim someone else, even though it was basharat for that other person, right? That was the explanation from what Shmuel said before, that therefore you're allowed to do the Eidus and the Cholamayit. So from that, it seems from the Gemara that there is a concept of Rachamim. But then from the story that the Gemara brings from Rava, it seems like that it doesn't help. Even if you're going to daven, it still doesn't help. There's a big arichas from the Rebbe about this subject in a letter, which is printed in Igris, and it's also printed in Lakota Siches Chelik Chavtes, and Isafis in the Parshas Kiseitze, where the Rebbe brings over there no less than 8 or 9 opinions about the subject. Whether you can change it, whether you cannot change it, and it's from all extremes. Some say you can never change it, some say in some situations you could, in some situations you can't. There's all kinds of opinions about this. I think actually in the end of the letter, the Rebbe says that in the end you see that Lukula Alma, there is some ifana that you could change it. But the only question is to what extent. Okay. Sagt the Gemara weiter, another statement from the same Amayre. V'amar Rav mishum Rab Reuven ben Itzrubili. V'amri lo b'masnite tana. We learned this in the Braise that Amar Rab Reuven ben Itzrubili. Ein adam nechshed b'davar. A person is not suspected about a certain thing or about an avera that he did. Elam kein osay, unless he actually did it. And v'im lo yasa kuloi, if he didn't do this avera fully that he's being suspected for, so then asa miktsasay. So then he did some of it. If he didn't do some of it, then probably he thought about doing it. But even if he didn't think about doing it, so he saw others that did this avera v'samach, and he was happy about it. So achshad shows that there's something there. So the Gemara asks him, is that always true? If there's a chshad, that means that there's something there. Most of Rabbi Yaakov, it says that the Yidden were choyshe deibishter. Vayechapu b'nei Yisrael, the Yidden were choyshe deibishter. Dvarim asher lo kein al Hashem alekeim. Things that are not true about the Eibishter. So you see that a chshad doesn't mean that there's something to it. Of course, you can't say that by the Eibishter. So the Gemara says, you're right. Hasam lahachesu David. The Yidden knew that this chshad they had in the Eibishter was totally untruthful, but they did it lahaches. They were choyshe. They said this about the Eibishter just to make the Eibishter angry.
What was this whole thing that he's saying? Ain't
yeah.
If you thought about it?
So people will not be choshid you of something unless there's something to it. unless there's something to that chshad. And even if you didn't actually do it,
even if I thought about it,
even if the person thought about it, that was the reason that this chshad came about. That's what brought this chshad on you. Tashema, the Gemara brings now another question on this. It says in Tilim, Vayikanu leMoshe b'machne la'aren kedosh Hashem. So what does this mean? Rav Shmuel by Yitzchak Amar, Melamed, this teaches me shekol echad kina leishtay meMoshe, that the Yidden, they went and they warned their wife not to go privately with Moshe. So what does this mean? They were chayshid on Moshe that he would go with their wife if this is a chshad that has nothing to it. So we see that it could be possible that you chayshid someone even though if there's nothing to it. So the Gemara says, you're right. Hasam mishum sinu David. Over there, they intentionally did this because out of their hatred that they had. But in a usual situation, if there's a chshad, there's probably something to it. Tashema, another ayah the Gemara brings, another question the Gemara brings. Amar Rabbi Yosi, Yehei chelki. It should be my portion. Amongst the people that are suspected about something, but there's nothing to it, there's nothing in it. And Rav Papa also said, Lididi chashtun, people suspected me about something, and there was nothing in it, there's nothing to it in me. So you see over here that there is a concept of chshad, even if there's nothing to it. So the Gemara answer is loikash, yeah? This is not a question. Ha bekala the pasik. Here is when we're talking about a chshad that people speak about it, but then people stop speaking about it. So the reason why people stop speaking about it is because there's really nothing to it. And ha bekala the la pasik. And then you have sometimes that there's a rumor and a chshad about someone that people don't stop speaking about it. That means that there's something to it. So the Gemara explains, "V'kol lepasik at kama." What does it mean? People don't stop speaking about it. To what extent? How long? Amar Abaye, so Abaye said, "Amar Ali aim." My mother, the one that raised him, said, "Dumi the masa." The dumi means the rumor that people speak about somebody in a city. When do we know that there's something to it? Yoime opalga. If it's a rumor that lasts for a day and a half. V'hani mili, and when is this chshad that there's something to it? Dulei pasik beni beni. When this chshad that people were speaking about, there was no stop to this during that time period. It was a day and a half that people were speaking about it with no interruption. Aval pasik beni beni. But if it was interrupted, if people were not speaking about it sometime during this day and a half, so then less lomba. So then it's not something that we pay attention to. And v'chi pasak. Beini, and even if people stopped speaking about it during this day and a half, lo yamaran el lepasik machmasire. That's only if this was not said if people stopped speaking about it because they got afraid. They got afraid that they're saying this about this person and they were afraid of him. But if the only reason why they stopped speaking about it is because they were afraid of this person, so then the fact that they stopped speaking about it does not mean that it's not a real chshad. They just were afraid to talk about it. Another thing is, if they stopped speaking about it, so it wasn't said that then it's not a real chshad. If it didn't come up again, if they after they stopped, after this rumor about this person stopped, it didn't come up again. But if after the rumor stopped, it resurfaces again, so then we don't say the fact that they stopped means that it's not a real rumor, that it's not a real chshad. But the fact that it resurfaces again means that there's something to it. Okay, so there's different pirushim here in this Gemara, because right in the beginning of this, the Gemara said that if it stopped within this day and a half, there was a rumor about this, and it stopped, and then the rumor returns, so then it's not a real rumor. The fact that it stopped at some time, we don't rely on it at all. And now the Gemara is saying, as long as it resurfaces again, we are concerned about it. So one of the pshatim is over here in this Hagois of the Maharav Ranshburg that's on the side of the Gemara. He says that if there's a chshad that they're speaking about a person for a day and a half, and it's non-stop that people are speaking about this, then we can be sure that there's something to it. But if it's a chshad that people talk about it, then people stop, and then it resurfaces again, so then there's a suffix. We can't say that there's nothing to it, but on the other hand, it's not going to be strong enough to determine that there's something to it. It's a suffix. That's what the Gemara means to say over here. The Gemara finishes another point. This whole thing, that if there's a bad rumor about somebody, and if it's for this long period of time, a day and a half, that there's something to it, if he has no enemies. So then we say, so where did this chshad come from? If he has no enemies, who let out such a rumor? There must be something to it. But if this person does have enemies, so then we can just simply say that it's those enemies that created this rumor, and it's no raya that there's anything wrong with this person. Okay.